I'm going to make a claim that I know y'all are not going to like, but Sasuke is the most overhated character in all of Naruto. Now, before you click off the video, let me make my point first. I am not saying that Sasuke did nothing wrong. I'm saying that Sasuke is treated very unfairly considering the circumstances that he was brought into. Because I don't think there's another character who has gone through the same amount of strife. I guess you can maybe make the case, maybe Obito. Obito's also pretty slandered because I feel like people like Naruto fans. I feel like half of y'all didn't even really watch the series. If I'm being very frank, because that or y'all are very media illiterate. Because you, it makes me think that half of y'all just get your information from the series from memes. Because pick whatever social media you want. Every social media you will go, Reddit, Twitter, whatever, you will see some of the most slanderous and absurd takes about Sasuke, and just things that just tell me you didn't actually watch the series, or you're just so biased by some of the actions that he did, which justifiably they were bad. I'm not here to defend everything, but to me, people focus on his actions later and just act like everything that came before it had nothing to do with his actions later. Like, we can start from like the turning point of Sasuke's life, which was the Uchiha massacre. Sasuke's life was basically screwed over from the age of 7 because of politics that had nothing to do with him. This guy lost his family, his mother, his father, his brother, everybody, because of Donzo and the elders. And yet people seem to just write him off as just some emo, when I feel like they don't hold that same standard to anybody else. Any other character, look at people treat Gar way different than they treat Sasuke. Even though you can make the same argument that Gar, especially at the beginning of the series, was just as edgy. There are plenty of characters with sad backstories. Itachi is the worst offender in all honesty. Itachi is the worst offender and is arguably less justified. And to me, it just seems very unfair how Sasuke gets judged for being one note or not making any sense, or just being an emo character, just basically somebody who whines and complains. When at the same time, you see people don't hold other characters to that same bar, same metric. Because it really baffles me how Itachi can be seen as a victim and Sasuke isn't, when there is really no difference, other than the fact Sasuke was a bit angrier. But and Itachi mostly did this to himself. Because I'm sorry, I understand he was put in a tough situation, but you're telling me there was no other way to handle that situation with the Uchihas? There was no diplomacy. There was no him choosing to fight with his family. I get it. It would have most likely resulted in death anyways, but murdering your whole family, to me, is something way more unforgivable than being angry at the village who caused it. I feel like with Sasuke, they blame the symptom and not the problem. Sasuke is a symptom of the Leaf Village's mismanagement of the Uchihas and their relations. Sasuke is just the reaction of that, because they lied to this man his whole life, making Itachi out to be some bigger villain than he really was. And then whenever he finds out, he was also being manipulated by Obito. That's another thing. Sasuke has been manipulated by adults his whole life. He's been put into situations that he did not control or that he did not want to be in. He didn't ask to get the curse mark. He didn't ask to have his family slaughtered. So maybe this is just me, but I feel like it's not that outrageous to be upset about that. His whole life has been changed dramatically for stuff he never did. People are going to bring up the fact that he left the village, but be honest, be fair. What could Kakashi have done for Sasuke at that point? Because Sasuke had the curse mark, and it was only really worsening. Like, he temporarily sealed it, if I remember correctly, but Sasuke, basically, he was basically predetermined to leave the village the moment Orochimaru put the curse mark on his neck, because there's nobody else who could really help him with suppressing it or training it. Kakashi couldn't really help him with that. He tried to help, but it really wasn't going to work in the long run, and it was breaking Sasuke down psychologically when he was already struggling emotionally. So to me, him leaving the village was inevitable for multiple reasons, because he wasn't getting any stronger, and his psyche was breaking due to factors out of his control. Throw in Itachi traumatizing him again, and then you get a recipe for disaster. And then you get what you get with him leaving the village, because Sasuke trained his whole life, or he trained since he was 7 to take down Itachi, only to find out he basically made zero progress at all towards that end. I don't agree with it. Well, I'm iffy on it, but I understand where he's coming from, because he's dedicated himself to this goal. Kakashi can't really help him and keeps on trying to steer him away from this goal. Even though I feel like it's a bit hypocritical from Kakashi's standpoint, considering Kakashi also went through a very similar point in his life. Like during the Anbu phase of his life, he was slaughtering people left and right and was just kind of just numbing the pain with killing people. So I feel like he was a bit insensitive to Sasuke and his situation and his plight. Another common like argument against Sasuke I see is that people will say, well, Naruto went through the same thing or, actually something worse, and yet he didn't leave the village. In which to me I feel like is very ignorant because not everybody responds to trauma the same way. And so I feel like it's a bit ignorant to kind of look at that and be like, oh, well, because he wasn't perfect or he didn't respond to it to the exact way that he probably should have, that basically everything he did was invalid or wasn't fair or like it wasn't justified. To me, a lot of what Sasuke did was wrong, but it wasn't necessarily unjustified. He deserved to kill Danzo outright, flat out. And whenever he attempted, to kill the other Kage, that one's a bit more questionable. But to me, he was being manipulated by Obito, who was telling him half truths. Which that's another thing. Sasuke has only been living his life knowing half truths, so he can't really make the most informed decisions when he's been manipulated by. He's been manipulated most of his life. He's been manipulated by the village because they lied to him about Itachi. He's been manipulated by Orochimaru, who kept on feeding him a bunch of crap. He's been lied to by Obito, who fed him half-truths. Didn't tell him the whole truth about the Uchiha massacre either. So Sasuke was making a lot of these decisions from a very emotional standpoint with not the full information. And so I feel like that is something that's overlooked or purposely ignored in order to feed narratives about him. And I really want to emphasize this, because I really want people to really look at his life, because I want to maybe change somebody's perspective on this, but I want people to really look at his life. From the age of 7, this man has been living in the same place that his parents died. He walks past, like, because it's shown in the series that whenever he walks past, like, he lives in the same part of the village where all the Uchihas, were living. He still lives in that part of the village. So every day he walks past a place that used to be populated with nothing but his whole family, his relatives, anybody he could have known, who's an Uchiha was there. And so every day he walks past basically a daily reminder of the worst day of his life. And that is his life, with nobody really to console him until he meets Kakashi. But at that point, the damage is kind of already done. Not to mention the fact Itachi's influence also, like, people also love to remove Itachi from accountability when it comes to Sasuke. Because Itachi, I understand he was 13, it's a half-cooked plan, I understand. But he didn't think that there was not a healthier way to guide Sasuke to a better path than just hate. Itachi constantly tells him he doesn't hate him enough. If he hated him, he would have killed him. So Sasuke does that. He builds himself on hate. He tries harder. He dedicates himself to hate. Is what the curse mark amplifies. It amplifies his negative emotions. And so I feel like a lot of people don't really take into perspective that a lot of things were going against Sasuke. Much like Naruto, he had no real positive role models. It is really just the luck of the draw that Naruto happened to be a very happy-go-lucky kid, because if Naruto was anybody else, he would have been Sasuke. He would have been Gaara. Or he would have been any other of the numerous amount of mirrors to Naruto's life. So I guess my point is that I'm not saying that Sasuke was right, but I'm saying I understand. Because he had to deal with a lot and to try to figure out a lot of things with very little guidance. Because realistically, he didn't, like, people mention that he had his parents, unlike Naruto, which is true. He had them for 7 years of his life. But realistically, I feel like 7 years is not all that long a time with your parents in the grand scheme of things. There are a lot of things that they missed. There are a lot of things, especially his father. His father was always comparing him to Itachi anyway, so that wasn't necessarily the healthiest dynamic anyways. But I feel like people kind of don't take into account the fact that, like, whenever you're a little kid, like, imagine your parents are out of your life by the age of 7. That's not enough time to instill everything that a parent would need to instill in order to make sure their child's a healthy and functional individual. And this video is probably all over the place because this is really just a rant. But I just thought of another thing that really pisses me off, because whenever people compare Sasuke to Naruto, they'll always bring up that Naruto's childhood was worse. Which you want to take it, I'll give it to you, bro. You got it, bro. You have the sadder backstory. But I hate this idea that because somebody's pain might be worse than yours, that basically you just shouldn't complain about it at all. Like, basically, because Sasuke's backstory isn't quite as tragic as Naruto's, basically he should just get over it, and that he should basically, that they try to invalidate his feelings because, oh, well, Naruto went through worse, so, why are you complaining? It's anime. Everybody has a sad backstory. I just feel like, bro, there's got to be a more intelligent way to talk about characters without having to play the victim Olympics to see who's getting the gold medal. That's about it. If you agree, go in the comments and tell me you think I'm smart. If you don't, call me stupid. I don't really care. It's not gonna hurt my feelings. But like, share, do all that.